unfortunately, the more popular you get in the social media world, anything you say, even if it's your own clinical opinion, can officially be sued for libel. And that goes
And
for
will be
anyone.
used
And
against
Facebook
you in a
groups,
court of law.
yeah.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tooth or Dare podcast tapes with your peep, Irene. Join with me for a part 2 episode with Dr. Amanda Wilson. Aloha, friend. Nice to see you again.
Aloha. Nice to see you.
In the first episode, we talked about your journey from high school to dental school to ortho to California to Hawaii, the struggles that you faced with your licensure, and then your mom life that has led you to having a full-time side hustle, a side hustle turned into a full-time hustle, helping general dentists achieve, I guess, success with their virtual consultations and setting up patient cases. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, they don't just have to do virtual consults. It's just a way that I communicate with them. But yeah, you're right on. And I don't know if I mentioned that the whole like helping general dentist thing is a bit, it does upset quite a few of my, co-residents in the past and a lot of my colleagues because they feel like I shouldn't be helping the general dentist. Like I should be supporting the orthodontist. But I really, I realize that general dentists are going to do ortho, just like they can pull teeth, they can, they can do perio surgery. A general dentist can do anything. That's still just like a family medicine person. They can deliver babies or they can do sutures. So if they're going to do it, and now that the technology is getting easier with indirect bonding and clear aligners, it's not just braces that you have to hand put on one by one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's digital technology, and they're going to do it. So we might as well teach them to do it right and educate them so they know when to refer and when maybe they can keep it in-house safely. And by doing that, I've actually found through some basic analytics, and it's not anything I can necessarily publish because it's not my data, but just talking to doctors, they're actually finding they're referring way more cases out to ortho than they ever did because they
Mm.
just understand ortho and they feel like they can qualify that referral better. The why do you really need ortho? Whether we do it or whether we refer you out, why is this ortho better for your health, for your bite, for the longevity of your teeth? So I really think there's no reason for orthodontists to get upset about what I do. And there's actually quite a few orthodontists who are doing this. A lot of them are just a little bit more on the down low. Maybe they do it more
Mm-hmm.
regionally. I do it, nationwide. But ultimately, I'm there just to educate you. I'm not going to do the work for you. I'm just going to educate you on what the options are and how to understand this process. And then from there, you can choose to do the case or not.
So how does that work? So let's say, I have a general dentist that works for me and she does clear aligner therapy.
Mhm.
Um, so she's got a case, she's got photos, she's got x-rays, she's got a scan, and then she doesn't quite know what she wants to do with the
Mhm.
case, whether it's something that she's comfortable with or not, and then how to like insert Amanda here. What's that system look like? What's the process look like?
That's a great question. First of all, I do really believe in giving back to society. And one thing I noticed before I even started this all, in 2013, is that there's like a super lack of like quality orthodontic education that's out there. And if it's there, it's just so incredibly expensive. Like you have to go to weekend courses and you have to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to sit in these boring classes every, 1 week a month or 1 week a quarter. And I said, this is just so old school. Why not get everything up online? I mean, I look at my kids and they're doing YouTube and they're doing TikTok and they're getting quick bits of stuff, what they need real fast. And, they wouldn't want to do this. So I started, and there were so many dentists globally who would just ask me questions and they just didn't have access to even any orthodontic education.
Yeah.
So I started putting stuff up on YouTube back in 2016 before that was even huge, and growing my channel with just I always loved to teach. Like if there was an assistant, I would be like, I'll teach you all about this. Like I love to teach and I love to explain things. And that makes me really wordy, and sometimes people don't want to listen to me, but I think I do a good job at taking something complex and making it simple. That's just a skill I have. So I said, why not just throw that all out on YouTube? Yes, it cost me money to make it, to edit it, to make the graphics, but yes, you might get a little bit money back from Google, but it's not even going to come close to what you spent.
Or
But I feel like it's good karma. And
21 cents
then
or whatever that payout is at the
yeah, I
end of the
don't know
month.
what. I mean, it basically pays for my coffee every month. That's so I don't feel guilty about my Starbucks habit or my
One coffee a month.
no, it's a little better than that. But yeah, I mean, that's what I tell my husband when he always sees Starbucks around. He's like, "Why are you paying for this?" I said, "Oh, my Google pays for this." But
It's the what do they call it? When they pay you for your investments, like it's the
dividends.
dividends. It's the dividends.
Yeah,
Yeah, you get
yeah, that's
the
true.
YouTube dividends.
It's the YouTube dividends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then occasionally, someone will find me and be like, "Hey, I don't have a hard sale, but I'd love for you to help me on a case or on some cases. I feel like you explain things well." Or they don't want to sift through my 2,200 videos to get the answer, but it's all there.
Right.
Like you do not have to pay for anything. It is all the information you need is out there for free. So, if people don't want to pay for it, and
I'll
that's
link that below. I'll link
oh
your
yeah, that'd be
YouTube
great. Yeah,
channel,
yeah,
and
yeah. My YouTube
I got
channel.
your
Yeah,
website and everything with all your contact info, which has all your
that would
socials
be
and things
great.
to it. Your website looks beautiful. I've been clicking kind of through it while
Thank you. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like your oh, it started speaking. I like your banner. It's got that like kind of vintage vibe, which is totally what I've subscribed
Thank
to.
you.
Very
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah. 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 So, if people want help with a case, there's all different ways we can meet. We can do things virtually through I use a HIPAA compliant dashboard that ADA makes. It's not mine. The ADA owns it, but it's a way that we can drag and drop cases and just chit chat in a HIPAA compliant way about the case. Or we can, do things virtually through Zoom. So whatever works for you, we can work it out. And I have some options on my website how it works. But yeah, that's basically how it works. And
So
yeah, we just talk
how
about the case.
complicated do you get? Are you strictly focused on clear aligner, ClinCheck,
Oh no, not at all. Not
and
at all. If it's
other?
ortho, yeah. No, the way I set it up with my insurance company and my lawyers and everything is like they're like, okay, we gotta have a limit to how hard your cases are. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not helping with any surgical cases. I don't care what pads, nothing. Can I do it? Yeah. It is just no. We're keeping the cases pretty simple because I firmly believe that more difficult cases need to be referred out anyways. And I don't want to get involved with helping GPs with these type of cases. Now, there are people who will, and I can send you to
Yeah.
those people, but it's not going to be me. We're doing simple, mild to moderate cases in kids and adults. It can be appliances, expanders, growth modification, Invisalign palatal expander, Invisalign with MA, twin blocks, really just simple, predictable stuff, regular braces, not any type of aligner, because some aligner companies don't want me to help with their cases. So I've been
Really?
served by, I've had it's been a really interesting 8 years with a lot of
Really?
lawyers.
You
Yeah.
don't have to name names if you don't want to, but I
Oh, I
find
have
that
a
really
naughty list.
interesting.
The naughty list is in my FAQs. It's buried in there, and I don't say why they're naughty, but whether their
I
lawyers
gotta
reached
look
out
for
to
this
me or
naughty list.
whatever.
Where's the
Yeah, some are
FAQs on the
aligner company. Oh,
website?
don't read it out loud because I'd rather not throw it out there. People are gonna have to go find it. But it's
Oh,
just
I
I
said
got
stuff on the podcast that I thought I was going to get into trouble for, and I didn't. So I think
I have not
freedom
dealt
of
with a
speech,
lawyer in 18 months. So I've been
freedom of
18 months
speech
lawyer
kicks
free.
in.
Girl, there is no
Let's
freedom of
let's
speech.
let's
I have played that
let's
card and
keep
I've been
you
told
off
other
of
things.
their lawyer list.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think we need
I've
to get
learned
you
a
on their lawyer
lot
list. That's
about libel, and unfortunately, the more popular you get in social media world, anything you say, even if it's your own clinical opinion, can officially be sued for libel. And that goes
and
for
will be
anyone.
used
And
against
Facebook
you in a court
groups,
of law.
yeah, because if it damages their brand, even if it's your clinical opinion. Now, it's different if you're in an office and you're just talking to one patient. And this has been the rudest awakening for me. So, it kind of stinks because I can say this is my own clinical opinion, but now that I have about 80,000 followers, which is nuts, on not just YouTube, but all my social channels, LinkedIn, everything. So I have to watch what I say. So
Yeah.
yeah, so anyone that once you hit my naughty list, then I won't even look at any cases having to do with your product, which is sad for you because these brands, because if I'm not recommending this product because I can't, then that's less volume for you, but that's your choice.
Yeah.
So
I do have a question on, and again, not
sure.
naming platforms and not naming products, but I haven't had
Mhm.
experience with seeing a variety of different platforms,
Mhm.
maybe three on the planning side. And,
Mhm.
there are some cases where you overcorrect in hopes to achieve what you want to achieve. So
Mhm.
your final whatever's delivered to you looks very different than what you actually get in real
Yeah, I don't
life.
do that. I don't do that
And
at all.
and I
But none
and
of
I
my
also
cases look like that.
yeah, I wonder why that is. I mean, some platforms are notorious for you needing to overcorrect in order for you to get what you want, and then others are not the same way. How do you account for that when you work with someone?
100% unnecessary. So,
Yeah.
if you do things correctly, make good decisions, and stage things at the speed they should be staged at, I think that's just the most absurd thing ever. If you look at a case, just don't do something that's not going to happen. Just be predictable with what's possible. And if you're trying to get, let's
Yeah.
say, for example, I know like what you're
Intrusions,
thinking
notorious
of.
for intrusion, like anterior
Intrusions,
intrusion.
yeah.
I worked in ortho for 4 years, and I
No
also was
way.
I was
Cool.
one of the original hygiene faculty members at Align in the early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
I'm not affiliated with them anymore, and I did a podcast episode on my experience there. So I don't think that I ever will be affiliated with them anymore. But
Oh,
with
yeah.
that said, I'm quite versed in the movement world. And like you said earlier, that there are docs that do more comprehensive coaching. One of the offices that I worked in after working in ortho, and the reason I got hired in this office was because she was a very orthodontically focused clinician who used ortho in conjunction with surgical interventions for prosthetic.
I
Um,
was like prostates.
so
Yeah.
prosthesis, prosthetics,
Yeah.
prosto work, whatever you choose to call it.
Oh,
So
cool.
she was avid in placing TADs for intrusion of molars to increase vertical. And it was always a notorious thing where we would overcorrect for intrusion, where you would almost make your software look like you had an anterior open bite at the case finish in order to hopefully achieve 50% of that intrusion. I always wondered, like,
Yeah.
is that just because you don't understand the biomechanics of what needs to happen in the posteriors? Because the posteriors are usually the problem, right? Your crowding is an indication of either lingual inclination, narrow arches. So then you're getting all of this like IPR that you're doing, and I want to ask you how you feel about posterior IPR afterwards. But is it just because you're trying to make the front look like what you want it to look like, but you're not actually addressing the real concern? What's your philosophy over this overcorrection stuff?
Yeah, I mean, and I think you mentioned deep bites and opening up bites and intrusions. So one thing to keep in mind, and actually I just had this conversation with a doctor right before I got on, is we were talking about, well, does this case need intrusion? Let's look at the smile line, let's look at the staff, let's look at the CBCT. What is causing this deep bite? And there's two different ways you're going to correct the deep bite, which I think you kind of alluded to. One is absolute intrusion of incisors, be it upper or lower or both. And the other one is relative extrusion of molars and premolars, which is leveling the curve of speed. So sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. Sometimes it's all one. Sometimes it's all the other. So you have to find out what the problem is, and then you have to treat what the problem is. So, there's only so much. It's a very hard movement in adults, and you might not get all of that. So I think just trying to make the ClinCheck look realistic and what's really going to happen. Maybe we'll get 30% improvement or 40%. Like I said, I don't teach TADs, and nor do I help doctors with cases that have TADs. So I mean, if it's something that's surgical and it's really going to need that in order so you can do restorative, then better to send to somebody who can do that. It is not fun, and it's also expensive. And maybe in Canada it's a little cheaper, but in the US, I mean, this it's going to get very expensive to do ortho with a lot of TADs and stuff like that, which may or may not work, which may or may not have issues. Um, it's not a fun experience. So I try to make treatment plans that are just realistic and will meet and a lot of times patients don't care. They're fine with just improvement. And as long as it's functionally good.
Yeah, setting those expectations is really important with
Mhm.
the human that comes in asking for something, and especially in adults,
Right.
like making them realize what those limitations could be. Um, how do you
Yes, I'm
feel
looking for
about
perfect, you can
IPR? I guess
refer out.
that's the next
Yeah,
question too, is like
sure.
in those preference settings where some people will say, do you prefer to have IPR in the anterior and the posterior, or do you prefer to achieve your expansion by distalization and uprighting? What's your
I,
philosophy? Do you have your
I'm
own movement
impressed.
philosophy?
Each case is a piece of art. Each case is an individual masterpiece. Each case has to be looked at, holistically. So it really depends. There are basically, like you mentioned, you basically just said this. There's 5 different ways we can alleviate crowding, right? We've got expansion, we've got proclination, we've got extractions of incisors or premolars. Hopefully, we're not doing that very often. We've got IPR, and we've got sequential distalization. So those are the 5 ways. You have to see in adults. You probably can't do all those ways. I mean, maybe there's nice gold work, so we can't bond to it and, to slide teeth backwards, or we can't do IPR there. Maybe there's veneers, so that's going to limit what we can do, in the front. So just have to kind of look at what works for the patient's profile. Putting a CBCT in the plan right now is kind of a new feature for Invisalign, not new, but it's a couple years old, and I believe Spark has it as well. It's a game changer. If you have a CBCT in your office, and I don't think there's a lot of that going on in Canada, but there's a lot of that going on in the US. You can just basically upload it into the Invisalign plan. There's a button you can click, and the first time's a little, lumpy bumpy. I would definitely talk to Align and have them help you out. But it is a game changer because it basically looks at the bone and it turns it red if you if you expand too much or you procline too much, which is cool because it's going to keep you from making a lot of mistakes that mostly an orthodontist would know just by looking at the tissue and, looking at the stuff and stuff. But I think it's a game changer for primary care dentists who maybe don't have that education or that experience to be able to go, oh, whoops, I definitely can't push teeth forward. I can't push teeth out. Well, I better come up with a different plan then. Maybe we got to do IPR. And no, I don't have a problem with posterior IPR. You just have to be good at doing it. You can't use a wheel.
Yeah.
You have to, I mean, you have to do it right.
See you later.
I mean, but I find most general dentists are absolutely incredible. They're way better at IPR than I am because they have experience doing crown preps and restorative, and they do really nice work if they put the time into it, and it works very well.
I love that you said that because I've seen some pretty bad IPR.
I've seen some bad IPR too.
Yeah,
but I've seen
some it looks like a stairwell. You're just like, oh, I know, little and stuff. That's sloppy. And then you floss, and it's like a little
that's sloppy. There's no excuse for that. Yeah,
working in ortho, a lot of the either ortho relapse cases or those cases where it's gone into a couple of mid-course corrections, and now you're at your final. And then they send to ortho for like a review of some kind because we can't quite figure out why this tooth keeps relapsing or why it keeps rotating back. And it's just that it's on the treatment planning side. Oftentimes it's this vanity concept that I'm going to move the crown, but just because you move the crown doesn't mean you're moving the root. And it doesn't mean that you're uprighting things in the correct way. So then relapse happens. So, I mean, in working as the hygienist in ortho and here, in the province of Ontario, the hygienist does most of the work, where in most states in the United States, it's like an expanded functions assistant. Assistants here can't place or bond or debond brackets or bend wires. So they can, run our instruments and help us get everything ready, but it's the hygienists that do all of the active movement or active work, and then a final kind of look over based on a client specific order. So, and then there were a few of us that in the practice that I worked in that did more of the comprehensive cases I've been practicing for a while, but back in the archaic days where we bonded hosses, and that was the fun.
Oh, those are stinky.
Removing those was gross.
So gross.
Yeah. So I'm happy that not a lot of people still do those. But I think
those are pretty nasty. Well, now you've got Invisalign palatal expander, which is actually pretty cool. I haven't
tried one yet. How are they?
I mean, they're pretty bulky. I mean, but they do great intrusion of molars on like high angle cases, so that's nice. But I mean, they do work if they wear them. Yeah. Right now they're really pushing us to try to.
They're not bonded in.
No, they're removable. Everything Invisalign does is removable. So you do have attachments on the back teeth, and it clicks in, and they're really big. But oh shoot, I actually have a sample. Hang on, it's actually within reaching distance.
She's got a sample. There it is.
I have a demo.
You have to come really close to the camera.
I will. All right, this is
Oh,
it.
cool. Oh, okay. So
Okay, and
it's
it
like
just
a,
comes
oh,
off like this.
I feel
So
like
it
that
just,
would make me
it's like
gag.
an aligner. That's what I think. It's 3D printed. There's attachments on the teeth. So you can't do it if they're missing back teeth. Like if they're in that transition period where they're missing like D's or E's or something,
So
they
it's not
won't
a
approve it.
not a teen, or I guess it could be from teen onward, but not the preteen phase.
Yeah, they prefer you do it on the Invisalign first cases. They will
Hmm.
allow it on Invisalign comprehensive, but I mean, it's up to you to make sure your patient is still growing.
Can
So,
I see it again? Can you bring it back up to
yeah,
the camera for a second?
sure. Yeah.
Can you
So it's
can
not
you
in
go
like a liner.
like sagittal view? The other like side horizontal, like occlusal down.
What? Huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
this.
like that.
Okay.
And then sideways, like I'm looking at your AP. Cool.
Like you're looking at a clean check from the side. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. And then so I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
the wear time is that they're just wearing it all the time or at
24/7.
night.
Yeah, they wear it. They actually want you to wear it when you eat too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because actually the attachments are so bulky. I don't know if you can see them. I mean,
You
they're on
probably
there.
hit your
They're
cheek
right.
and chew your cheek on it.
Yeah, you'll knock them off. So
Yeah.
and they don't want you swallowing this, obviously. So yeah, you're supposed to wear it 24/7, and then if you do wear it 24/7 and you wear it when you eat, then they say you can change it daily, but we've been doing like twice a week with my doctors, and it's been working fine. Um,
Do they come
but
in the
yeah, I mean,
same
it's pretty
box
cool.
sequence? So like you take one out and then
Yeah, like a strip.
same, yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah,
daily
yeah.
change?
That's what they say, but we've been doing twice a week. It's just been working better. I think that nobody's quite keeping it in 24/7. So
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing mostly. But Invisalign says you can change it daily. But
Mm,
I mean, it's basically like rapid palatal expansion if you change it daily. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool.
Cool.
And then you do over the bottom, so at the same time you do this on the top, then on the bottom you do regular Invisalign, be it
Mm.
comprehensive or Invisalign first, because you're going to have to upright the curve of spia and all that in most cases. And then
So
you
is this
finish in regular Invisalign. So this is just the step before the regular Invisalign.
So how does this now fit in with distalizers? So if you were doing a distalizer to correct AP,
Like
would you do
like
that
a carrier, like a
like a
carrier. Is that what you're
carrier?
talking about?
Yeah.
Carrier.
So
I call it the French way. The carrier. Um,
how does that what's that treatment plan series look like?
I barely do distalizers in kids just because I try to make any AP changes usually is due to a deficient
Before?
mandible and we have airway issues and stuff like that. So I'd rather use their MA to grow
Mm,
a lower jaw than to push an upper jaw back. But again, you have to look at each case holistically. If you look and the SNB is normal and the profile would look terrible if you grew the lower jaw and the airway is good, then sure, you could use like, I guess I guess it depends on where the second molars are in terms of treatment timing, because you can't really distalize with a carrier if the second molars are coming down. So
right.
um, whatever you got to do first. So maybe you do that first. Maybe you do the expander first. I would say depends on when you normally do the carrier. I don't know if I've ever seen it on like 6 and 7 year olds. Usually they're a little older, so I imagine you do the expander first.
You need a permanent molar and a permanent canine. So
Right. Okay. So it's not going to be 6 and 7.
teen, yeah, it's
So
not
right.
kids, it's
Yeah.
teens. So yeah,
Yeah.
and teens are an adult, and usually it's kind of a split the difference thing. So if you had a class
Mm.
two, they would wear it differently than if they had a class one or a class
Correct,
three.
correct, correct. You have the
Um,
S6 on the Ellatum and the elastics and all that. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So you're kind of like splitting the difference in the movement. You're distalizing and mesializing at the same time. You're mesializing either lower and
Right.
distalizing maxillary or vice versa. But it's cool because at one point, Invisalign was very keen on this integrative process.
Hmm.
And now that this is here, it's kind of an interesting thing that they're adding some more conventional or unconventional, but more conventional for orthodontists into the
Yeah.
GP
Yeah. I
space.
mean, I don't find that carriers are that necessary because I feel like I can get the same movements with just Invisalign. I can still distalize. I don't have to have an elastic to it.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
um, save a $500 lab fee or whatever. Those little pieces of plastic seem like to me like they're still expensive. I'm sure they cost like so much less to make. So I just have a hard time with the price that they charge. And I'm
Yeah.
sure if you buy them in bulk, they're not that bad. But um, for just a one-off. I mean, it seems like it's a lot, and I haven't really ever found that it's necessary. I can just find another way to do it. But I mean, if they really want braces, then okay, fine.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like so many different people have their own protocols, and I guess it's the thing
Mhm.
in every specialty, in ortho and endo and perio and pedo, you've just
Mhm.
you duplicate the same thing that you've done before that has been successful
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that case type.
Mhm.
So it's the
Yeah,
repetition and the consistency that
rinse and
ultimately
repeat.
renders you the greatest
Hmm.
outcome. So
Right.
you go to these courses with,
Hmm.
Dr. Coco Garcia, who is very firm on if this, then that, and that doesn't
Hmm.
deviate from his three different types of orthodontic treatment plans based on, you know,
Hmm.
whatever the Ricketts number is, then you must do this.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so many different philosophies in so many different places. I guess it comes down to like working with someone that also understands you and your practice type, which it sounds like you do. You
Hmm.
don't have a one size fits all. You've got a I can work with
Hmm.
anything kind of
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. Yeah. I try as long as it's not surgical. And as long as the doctor is pretty much airway focused. If they come in and they tell me that they're going to pull premolars on every patient, well, then they're probably not a right fit for me. Because I'm just going to push
Yeah.
back and be like, no, no, I'm not helping you on this one. This is just not the right way to do it. And
Yeah.
occasionally I've had doctors like that where we're just like, you're right, your way is not wrong, but I just don't feel comfortable helping you this way, and it's just not a good fit. We part ways and it's fine.
Yeah, those extraction cases often they're like the highest of relapse and pose so many other issues. I mean, I remember moments where it was upper bis and lower molars where people were extracting upper bis
Yeah.
and lower molars, so like distalizing the upper and then
Hmm.
mesializing the molar. And
What a
I
pain in the
remember
butt.
seeing relapse cases because they were relying on the wisdom tooth to come in the place of the
Hmm.
second. And you never know what that wisdom tooth is going to look like. You never know
Yeah.
what the root is going to be shaped like and the tooth morphology, and you run into a whole slew of other
Hmm.
issues. So those are
It's still
interesting.
happening in Asia. I see a lot of cases like that in Asia, but not
Yeah,
so much in the US, or definitely not in Europe.
yeah. Or I mean, very rarely, but the pulling of canines and then reshaping premolars to look like
Oh
canines. Remember
goodness.
those
Yeah,
days?
no, I cannot stand that. Yeah, you still see some of those. I'm like, where did the canines go? Oh, they pulled them.
Yeah.
That's
And
weird.
they'll just like file down a
Yeah.
premolar to make it look like a canine.
Mm-mm.
Like, wait a minute, not
Mm-mm.
the right dude. What are we doing here?
Mm-mm.
Interesting.
No, yeah,
Cool.
there's some funky trends that happen in ortho, and you can kind of look at a patient, you're like, okay, I kind of know when you had ortho, and where you had
Yeah.
it. So
Based on the time, I'm
yeah.
gonna close this world blind. At this time of day, the sun comes in and it's blinding.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, that's what happens to me about 3 o'clock. So that's why I like to do my podcast at this hour because it's not hot. So
Yeah. Interesting. Anything else that you want to share with our viewers? Anything
hmm.
about um, that confidence boost that people avoid doing ortho because
um,
of this?
Not really, but I'd like to give them a resource because I always like to give.
Sure.
We talked about omiyage in Hawaiian, which is giving a gift to our visitors. So I would love to offer your doctors who listen, but they need to mention your podcast, of course, that they heard me on the podcast, and then I have a couple handouts that they could have that might help them to get started.
Sure.
I have one document called My Phase One Smile, which is a Phase One screening form, which really helps you take a look at the case holistically from bites to habits to potential impacted canines, and check it. It actually is an interactive PDF, so you can put in the score and it'll tally a score and say how necessary phase one treatment is. Is it urgent? Could you wait? Of course, don't just go by the number. It's just a talking point, so you can talk to your patients. But I would love to give you guys a copy of that. It's called My Phase One
Thank
Smile.
you.
So yeah, reach out to me. Or if you need like a sleep disorder breathing screening form, I have one of those. Those are floating around everywhere. But if you don't have one, I'll give you mine. So I think
Oh,
those
that's
are
great.
probably the best ways I can help people with some of my documents. So just let me know if you need something.
Yeah. Are they like housed on your website or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the full form there because then people
Sure, of
just
course.
remake it, but I have part of it. But yeah, I do have a section on my website that says documents. Of course, those are for sale, but I'm giving them to your listeners for free. So just mention the podcast and I'll just give it to you. email
Oh,
me.
awesome. I mean, we can even maybe we can talk about this off camera, but we can maybe do like a special code or something. Because if I put it in the show notes and this thing lives forever, I mean, I'm sure the people will roll around to it. So that's
Oh,
cool.
I
Great.
don't mind.
Thank you.
I'm like so laid back. As long as you just mentioned the podcast and it was one I actually did, I just give it to people. So,
Thank
you
you.
know, yeah, no problem. It can live
That's
forever.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, thanks so much for
Sure.
taking the time for not only part one, but also part
Thank
two.
you.
Great to meet
Thank you. It
you.
was
If I'm
really
ever
fun. This was probably
ever in
one of the
Hawaii,
best podcasts I've done.
maybe
I
your
would
kid
love that.
give me a surf lesson.
That I would love that. Yeah, that
That'd be
would be
cool.
great. And I'd love to come back to Canada. We just went to Quebec City, Q City, this last summer for my birthday. So it was really fun.
Happy belated birthday. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, if you're in Toronto, look me up.
Will do. It's a gorgeous city.
Awesome. All right, everyone, check out the details in the caption below for downloads, resources, any of that fun stuff. And until next time, peace out, peace. Bye.
Bye.